one.
Nice.
Cool.
Put that away. All right. Welcome to the Don't Panic podcast. There's a lot of shit. Lots of stuff happening in the world. But you know what? We're here to talk about it in a cool, calm, collected manner because as crazy as it all seems, there's a lot smarter people than us who are figuring some shit out. And we could trust them. We just have to listen. Anyway, we are here today with my lovely co-host, Jed. Jed, wave to the people. Give him a thumb. There you go. And the excellent king of roasting on various Facebook pages, an educator of dance, art, and culture, and quite possibly one of the funniest roles, Jarius King, a.k.a. the Man of God.
Word. And just to correct the pronounce, it's pronounced Jarius.
Jarius. Wow, man. Thank you.
It's all good, yo. It's so common, bro. It's so common. It's all good. It's all good.
I've known you for years, and I've still been calling you Jarius. That's my bad. Jarius is joining us all the way from Hong Kong. It's so awesome for him to hop in here with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it is very late for him right now. So
it's very early. It is
very early.
It's about to be 6 a.m. and I haven't slept.
Oh man.
Yeah, there we go.
Nice.
He's been drinking. He's been networking. So before we get into this, patreon.com/Don't Panic Podcast. Please consider supporting us. You will get early access to content, bonus content, future content that you wouldn't get. Full episodes on YouTube, audio episodes on Spotify, and then highlights on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Please give us a follow, a like, a shout out. We'd love to have you on if you've got something to talk about. So, me and Colin were just talking about this. So we may as well hop into it since you have firsthand experience. I was born in Hong Kong, but I haven't been back there since I was 10. So my perspective of what's going on in Hong Kong with the protests and the encroachment of the PRC is very different from what your opinion may be or what your viewpoint is, and with other people living there in Hong Kong. So I'm interested into sort of where your stance is in regards to, I guess, the Hong Kong protests and what the authoritarianism of the PRC and what they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
God dang.
We just started heavy.
Yo.
off the bat.
So, okay, I will say first and foremost, I will say things as diplomatically as possible for the simple fact that several days ago, they just passed a national security law here where any statements or whatever people make, if they're seen as supporting secession or subversion or whatever else, I could be deported. My family could be persecuted. The mother of my children, her family, because they're permanent residents, they're Hong Kong citizens, it could be seen as supporting that. So I will say, and the relationship between the U.S. and China is not good because of Hong Kong being a chess piece between the two, especially for the U.S. In a sense, meddling in the affairs of China with Hong Kong as the centerpiece. So I'll give my personal take on how stuff is playing out, not necessarily what side I stand on.
Gotcha. That's fair.
Because first and foremost, this shit ain't my fight. Because I would be dumb to sit my black ass over here and go hard in the paint for Hong Kongers when they're still selling Darlie toothpaste with blackface on it and shit, like reverse blackface on it.
Right.
I'll say, yeah. So I'll say it's been very interesting, my journey here in Hong Kong, with seeing how the anti-government protests have played out, for the simple fact that much of what it's led up to and how it is now, Hong Kongers have used, in essence, Black American culture to be kind of one of the rallying cries for their anti-government protests. So for a lot of folks who don't know, basically a lot of this started when, you remember the movie Rush Hour? The movie Rush Hour started, and they had like the handover. They had like the news about the handover of Hong Kong back to China. Basically, Hong Kong was a colony of Britain.
Right.
Britain got mad because China wouldn't let them sell their dope here, and they burned like a huge shipment of opium, and they basically bombed the fuck out their navy because they got mad they wouldn't let them sell dope.
Right.
Out of that conflict, they got Hong Kong. They also got access to other cities like Shanghai and whatever else like that, and the other European powers that had a presence in China throughout that time. So Hong Kong was colonized for like 150 years, and in 1997 they signed the Sino-British, or however you pronounce it, joint declaration that was saying, you know what, we're going to give it back to China, and over the next 50 years, because China's a supposedly communist regime. It's different than traditional communism than we would think, like Fidel Castro, Che Guevara type joint, Marxism or whatever. But you know what? Over the next 50 years, Hong Kong's gonna enjoy certain freedoms that we don't have because we're a communist regime or whatever. They're not necessarily a democracy, but they have the rule of law, which I still don't fully understand. And so they're going to enjoy certain freedoms over the next 50 years. And they kept it like that because Hong Kong was like the international city for Asia, like financially, not in terms of diversity, but financially in terms of getting money through X, Y, Z. So it got to a point, for whatever reasons, that China was just like, you know what? Yeah. we gonna make it quicker. We gonna expedite this process. Y'all us right now. And they used the incident, and I feel like I'm gonna be a little bit incorrect on this, but basically I think a Hong Kong citizen committed a murder of his girlfriend in Taiwan and dipped out from Taiwan to Hong Kong. But since they don't have the extradition agreement between Hong Kong and Taiwan, and China claims whatever over Taiwan.
Right. There's the various disputes between the ownership of the two fucking cities and whatnot.
Exactly.
Countries.
So they were like, you know what? We don't have the power to charge this criminal, who I think he might have been a Chinese national, or the victim might have been a Chinese national, whatever. But they was like, we don't have the power to process this person or convict them. So we want to pass this law to say that we can arrest this dude, who is a Hong Konger, in Hong Kong, and bring him to trial in China. And people in Hong Kong were not having it. They were like, hell no. So that happened like in June of 2019.
Right.
And like I think it was like 2 million people took to the streets, bro.
That's
peaceful
crazy.
protests. And mind you, this is on the heels of, this was in 2019, this was on the heels of like the 2014, 2015 umbrella movement protests that they had here, where they occupied the central business districts.
Right.
For like, I think it was like months, bro. Like crazy. Like I need to look it back up again. But I moved here end of 2015, and this stuff started popping off 2019, and it was a gradual process. So I saw it kind of all play out. And what was crazy to me was that living here in Hong Kong, and I know like I'm part of a crew here called Rhythm Attack, which they're like Hong Kong and all of China's premier international like breaking crew and street dance group or whatever, however they
Right.
define. And some of my crewmates, when I was here, a lot of stuff was happening back home, and I was posting about it and just talking about. Y'all know me; I'm very vocal on Facebook and social media and whatnot. And I was talking about these issues, and one of my crewmates, a few dancers that I know who would see me on the streets, even the mother of my children. Pretty much the sentiment is like, why are you always talking about police and why are you always only talking about the black people stuff? It's not so serious. You don't need to be so serious and blah, blah, blah. And I was just telling them straight up, like, yo, the police are not your fucking friends. And, they were just telling me like I was overreacting. I was thinking too much about the black people stuff and racism and yada, yada, yada. And then when they started having these peaceful protests against the extradition laws and they kept pushing, police started cracking them upside their heads.
Right.
And then things kind of changed. And I even had one of my homies who was like, you know what, man, I'm sorry. Whatever I said, this stuff I told you, you talk about too much about the black people stuff. I know what you mean now. So I saw the shift because Hong Kong police had a very good reputation here.
Right.
But that switched overnight. And it got to a point where when I talk about black culture being like a rallying cry here, there's a Filipino dude who's a rapper here.
Yeah.
Born and raised here, speaks fluent Cantonese. His name is JB. He made a song called Tio Le Lo Mo, which Jed may or may not know. I don't know how much Cantonese he speaks.
Like zero. I know a little bit of Mandarin. Like I know a little bit of Mandarin. But...
Okay, so Tio Le Lo Mo literally means like Tio Le, fuck your Lo Mo, old mama. So fuck your mama.
Basically. Right. Oh God.
Fuck your mom. Right. And it was about like fuck the popo. Something like fuck the popo. I forget the cadence, but like fuck the popo, Tio Le Lo Mo. And I started seeing out of nowhere like spray paint, because like the Hong Kongers, they was going hard in the paint with anti-police protests, because it started as going against the extradition law, but then when the police started strong arming them, they started being like, fuck the popo. And in Cantonese, like popo, like depending on the tone you say it, it means like your mother's mother. So my son, his mother is Cantonese.
Yeah.
So his grandma here, he calls like popo, like oh yo popo, like I want grandma. So when I started seeing that shit spray painted, I was like, I know mugs ain't running around here mad at their grandma. So what's up? Like, why is it fuck the popo all of a sudden?
Right.
And turns out this Filipino dude made this rap song, which Filipinos traditionally in Hong Kong have had in Asia in general have had the best command over the English language out of all the Asian groups.
Gotcha.
And Pacific Islander, whatever may have you. I would say Asian though, because they generally identified as Asian. And he made that song, and they just took to it, bro. And I found out that this dude made it, and I know him because he's a popper, actually.
Okay.
So he's a popper, but he's also a rapper, and he made the song, and the shit blew up, and it became the rallying cry here in Hong Kong of like fuck the popo, Tio Le Lo Mo, like whatever. So seeing how Hong Kongers went from, especially within people that I know who are well-traveled Hong Kongers who traveled the world through Black American art forms, through breaking, through all these other things, for them to be like not understand and connect with, or even in certain instances tell me that I'm being like kind of like hypersensitive about certain things, about Black issues, the Black people stuff, to them being like, fuck the popo, and using our vernacular as a form of protest, and even using dances like the shoot dance and other things to antagonize cops who couldn't get to them, as a using our dances and stuff as a form of protest. It's been bugged out, bro. It's been crazy. And I've gotten in debates in WeChat, which is like the app in China that they use to like do everything. Yeah. Hail cabs, buy stuff, chat with folks. Right. They have like chat groups for like dance stuff. Like there's been beef between Taiwan dancers, breakers, Hong Hong Kong breakers and breakers from mainland China. And it really came to a head when they had like this, I think it was like the 70th or something anniversary of the People's Republic of China, like back in like October or something last year.
Mm-hmm.
So they was going hard in the paint, and they even tried to come at me, and because I was telling them like, yo, all that nationalist, separatist, whatever beef bullshit y'all doing, do that with y'all culture. Y'all want to do that shit with kung fu, do it with that, but don't use my people's culture to do that. And it was like, well, what if, what if people were attacking police in the streets and da da da? And I was like, yo, bro, you trying to rationalize whatever stuff against Hong Kong? I'm a black man from the U.S. Police shoot me just because of my skin color. That shit don't apply.
Right.
So, bro, what you yawning for? It's 6:05 a.m. and I ain't slept. It ain't nothing but 6 p.m. over there. I should be yawning. I'm eating fucking pumpkin raisin bread and drinking water to stay awake.
You're right. I'm sorry. My bad. Horrible. I'm the worst.
But no, I am talking a bit, so y'all may have to edit this or whatever. But yeah, It's been really crazy and interesting to see how the protests went from super peaceful and very compliant, and from folks really trusting the cops to that shit changing overnight to the point where it got, it's been getting crazy. Like, everybody in the world has been struggling with the COVID-19 pandemic. And the running joke in Hong Kong has been like, oh, the people who are best prepared for the pandemic have been the protesters, because they've been getting tear gassed and shit for the longest. So they've been wearing masks.
They've been wearing masks already.
They already had the heavy duty shit, so they good.
And they were wearing masks because of facial recognition software and stuff from the
facial recognition software, but also because the cops they were tear gassing in Hong Kong like crazy, and then it got to a point where they was getting like tear gas 2.0 to the point where they were documenting where the cops were shooting the tear gas and it would hit the asphalt or the concrete and it was melting the asphalt. Like tar, like it was burning through it. Like people were having burn marks on their back. Like they were upgrading the tear gas. So folks were like, and they were accused of firing expired tear gas too. They were accused of it. So, when they got the Hong Kong police got accused of it, because expired tear gas can what's the word not exude or put out, extract or whatever. If you fire expired tear gas, the output could be it could lead to like cyanide, so cyanide poisoning.
Holy shit!
Yeah, bro. So Hong Kongers started documenting that, all of a sudden, because they were picking up the tear gas canisters and finding the dates out.
Yeah.
Because the interesting thing about the Hong Kong protest, it was a leaderless movement, and a lot of the folks who were doing it were very educated. They were mostly university students, and the education standard here is super stressful. It's very high, and so it got to a point when they pointed that out. All of a sudden, next round of tear gas, and a couple weeks later, dates are scraped off of the tear gas canisters. So it's been really crazy to watch people fully trust the cops, to it being a very big deal that a cop shot a gun in the air as a warning signal. Our damn near our Trayvon Martin incident was like, or our Michael Brown incident, may they rest in peace, was like, they shot a gun in the air.
Right.
That was the equivalent over here. So I seen the shit transform like firsthand, bro, and it's been crazy. It's been really crazy. So
as someone who was like born in Hong Kong, obviously I haven't been back. I don't live there, but I feel a certain level of like nationalism, pride for being from Hong Kong. I'm very on the fence about the protests because, one half of me is like, Hong Kong is a pretty strict, capitalist system. So part of me is like, okay, you know, like I'm anti-capitalist. I don't support, you know, that side. But then, of course, the other side of it also is the PRC is authoritarian, and I don't want them infringing on Hong Kong. And I'm very much so like, you know, since I'm from Hong Kong, being like Hong Kong should have its own power, their own rights, they should govern separately. You know, so that's sort of like an, you know, I guess like a internal struggle I've had, and also just dealing with like misconceptions of China and stuff in general, because like a lot of people over here are talking about that protest, and you know, something that I see a lot of people do is they say they refer very specifically to China as the Chinese Communist Party. They read CCP, or they read the whole thing out, all you know, with the capital letters and all that stuff with the title. And you know, I talk about that being like subtle propaganda as a way, you know, to being anti-communist, because China isn't actually communist.
Yeah, they're a state-planned capitalist society. Like, while a lot of their stuff is very, very much dictated by the governing body, it's still capitalist in its nature.
Hyper-capitalist, if you ask me.
Yeah, they're just doing the capitalism better.
Yo, they play the game and they play it well, bro.
Yeah, and so to, I don't know, kind of expand and just like my personal feelings on the matter, because I've like I said, I have mixed feelings. China bad to a certain degree. I have mixed feelings about China, but the facts that give me issue is the American politicians that decided to throw their weight behind the Hong Kong protests that, you know, to me signal
Mark Rubio,
Rubio, Ted Cruz. There was talk of like, not even talk. There was like some reports of like alt-righters, like, you know, Proud Boys, 3%ers, those kind of guys showing up in Hong Kong aiding the protests.
Yo, the Ukrainian cats, Yo,
and then that's frustrating, because you know, people like us over here, we're like, y'all don't see that you're China in this scenario. Like, you're supporting the authority here in the U.S. You're supporting authoritarianism, but you want to pretend like you're the rebels. You want to pretend like you're the good guys,
bro.
You know, and you're fighting for the small people. You know, when you're not. In the U.S., you're the bad guys.
Bro, there's this notion.
Everything on the OnlyFans. My nipples out.
I'm about to start posting these on OnlyFans.
Yep. Check out my OnlyFans. It's just pictures of my cat.
There's the notion of saving face that has plagued the protests, but also I feel the Hong Kong government, because it is, to me, to a degree, it's been ridiculous on both sides.
Okay.
Due to the notion of saving face. And I don't want to harp on Hong Kong for too long. It's just
we can ship things.
It's crazy, man. Because, you know, I have 2 children, so they from here.
Yeah.
Like, my son is almost 5. He speaks better Cantonese than he does English. So this is their home. You know what I'm saying? And this is also the home of their mother. This is the home of my homies and my crew. Like, but the notion, I've been, at first I was like really like all about like power to the people for Hong Kongers, but then I really saw how, in my opinion, the Hong Kong movement seemed very immature because of this concept of saving face, because it was all about them. It's like, I personally hate politics, but it's just like, you know what? Like, there's certain times where you got to come to the table and maybe make concessions, and they weren't having. And, you know, they changed their slogan to like, it was like 5 demands, no less, which was the 5 demands were kill the extradition law, which they did.
Right.
And the second one was to take back the classification of the protests as riots.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted universal suffrage. They wanted a review of the police because they were accused of police brutality and also collusion with the triads. And there was one more demand.
Okay.
And it got to a point where I think it was also like 6 demands. So it got like up there. And granted, like I understand the sentiment and stuff behind it, but they just weren't, they want to save face. They want to look like their cause is like the purest. And it was the same thing with the Hong Kong government. And it was just like nobody was budging. So it got to the point where it was just like you had university students, they laid siege to a university campus here.
Yeah.
And they held them off, bro. Like these dudes, they had engineering students building catapults. And the Molotov cocktails was like the weapon of choice. So they were like Molotov cocktailing the shit out of armored police vehicles, whatever, that were trying to roll up on them at this university because there was only one way in. It took like weeks, bro, like to solve that conflict. And the police, like the students, they wore out. They were like mentally drained. Like it got to a point they was pulling some Mission Impossible shit, like tight roping off of a bridge.
Yeah, I remember that.
People on motorcycles getting them up out of there so they wouldn't get arrested by cops. It was like they were holding out like on some Last Samurai shit. Not shout outs to Tom Cruise for being that role, but yeah.
Tom Cruise is the Last Samurai. What? Shut up.
What's worse, Tom Cruise being the Last Samurai or Matt Damon being a Chinese war hero?
I would say, you know what? I would say Tom Cruise being the Last Samurai because it was an actually good movie. So it made me upset that okay. Side note. So I watched that shit in college, and my roommate, like at the end of the movie, where they was letting off on him. He was crawling and da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
And when I tell you, I'm very in tune with my emotions. So, bruh, I was getting annoyed because I was like, they better not make this white dude the last person. But then at the same time, I was just like, oh my God, he's gonna do it. And bruh, my roommate walked in, so I was just like,
yep.
Suck that shit right back up, bro. I was like, you can't see me crying over no fucking samurai movie. Like, nah, I ain't going out like that.
No, this isn't. You have to switch to Pixar real quick so it makes sense.
Right?
I was watching
I'll definitely say, I guess Matt Damon is probably worse because it was a horrible movie. I never bothered to watch that. And I was like willingly of the country. To do that shit versus like the Last Samurai. Like they had some Japanese actors, but I don't think it was like the Ministry of Japan funding that shit. Like it's different.
Right. Was it? I was gonna say, isn't whatever the Matt Damon movie is that's not the Forbidden Kingdom, the Lost Kingdom, Last Kingdom, Great Wall. Yeah.
Horrible. It looked whack. Like that's the thing.
Yeah.
Last Samurai was dope. I'd watch it again actually. Like I'd watch that again. I forgot the Matt Damon shit existed until y'all brought it up. So there's that.
Yeah. I only remember it existed recently.
That was Chinese produced, wasn't it? That's what I guess my question.
Yeah, it was. They came out and mainly it was like straight up China. Like
So they were. I mean, so they were trying to use Matt Damon to get an American audience.
Did not work.
No, I'm pretty sure that movie was like written by like white dudes. I'm like pretty sure. The Great Wall.
I don't know. I don't know shit.
It sucked. It sucked. It had
It's probably got all the white savior stuff going on. So.
Yeah.
Just a side note. My bad. I know, like, bro, like one, I'm tired. I'm sleepy.
Yeah.
And also, I can't talk my ass off. So if y'all even need to just cut off that first part or edit it, like no hard feelings, because I know there's other shit we got to get into. Because
no, you're
I feel like it's already been like an hour, damn near, probably, or like I don't know.
something like that. We end up going way longer than we expect to almost every time.
We started late too.
But actually, let's kind of talk about. I want to talk about like fucking Facebook pages and sort of, no, seriously, because there is a a level of like really really interesting engagement that does happen. And while like there are people who are like, oh, don't get into arguments on Facebook or on social media and like blah blah blah, go back and forth with people. But I see that like being the sort of mode of very like both people like myself who are just kind of like fucking gutter politicians who most of my opinions come from like observing the world and then looking it up and being like, oh shit, I was wrong. But and then more educated people, like there's this guy that I want to interview for the podcast later. He is a I believe a like a debate champion, but also just like he's got a master's degree in a bunch of different like social sciences and whatnot, and he uses like TikTok as one of his platforms to engage with people and get into not necessarily arguments, but deep conversations with people about their like either social or racial hangups. Like he talked about he talked with a police officer, former cop, about police brutality, and they had like a hour-long debate thing on Instagram, and that sort of like shifted that one guy's perspective. And I don't know what is it for you, because I see you roasting people on different pages, and there is and it's not without purpose, you know what I mean? Like it's not like you're just going there to bully people. There is a like an sort of established like, hey, this is something that we're not trying to do in this social circle anymore. And somebody's like, but I'd like to. And but yeah, like
Jared's been going in on the Facebook pages.
He has been, but
I'm done. Man, I'm done with that shit. That's just such a waste of my time right now. But yeah. So, my fault. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, you're good. I mean, I guess like where are you going with that? What was its purpose for you personally? Like how, like, where do you see yourself? Like, does that inform, you as an educator? Did you try and like implement, talk to me about that?
Yeah. So part of that, how it initially started is, my background, I'm born and raised, I'm from Chicago. And, Chicago is one of the most racially segregated cities in America, in the U.S. In terms of, especially like a big metropolitan city with,
right.
Different diverse populations, and even just me in terms of my background, like I started breaking in 2000. So it's been like 20 years since I've been like active in like the breaking community, dance community, whatever, dance scene, whatever you want to call it. And even just coming up, bro, like the sense of anti-blackness that I've always felt has been like so apparent. And not only just in Chicago, but when I started traveling and like the aesthetics of breaking and certain things that would win you competitions and get you recognized and XYZ, or, even like the documentaries and like the narratives that were passed about breaking, stuff just over time, it stopped adding up. It didn't make sense,
Okay.
And I've been very blessed and fortunate to be able to travel the world for various reasons. At one point, I worked for an airline. So that's why, like, people were like, yo, like, why are you at all these battles and all these big competitions? Because I was working my ass off, working 16-hour shifts, back to back to back, sleeping 3 hours, 4 hours, doing that shit for 2 weeks straight, trading away my hours and flying to a competition right after my shift, hopping off the plane, kicking it, battling, building with people, and then hopping on the plane, sleeping for half a day, and then doing it right back again. Like I was putting in work, bro. Like So I was everywhere. And also over the years, I've been very blessed and fortunate to be part of a festival called Breaking the Law, which was based out of Madison, Wisconsin, in my alma mater, my university I was going to. I was a co-director of an event with my homegirl Ella Katrina, who's part of Guideasta's crew. Also, Girl Illa Tactics, who they've been doing amazing work recently in terms of dismantling like anti-blackness and anti-racism work and providing resources and stuff for folks who are really fighting for social justice and police accountability, systemic police accountability for police and whatnot. So with organizing, we did that for like 11 years straight. So, you know, not only was I battling and I was active and, you know, representing like Chicago at like City versus City alongside cats like Waka from Brickheads, who I've been watching since I first started breaking and shit, you know, like I was also organizing. So peeps like Remind, Quickstep, Rockefeller, She-Chan, Rumi, Ayumi, Lady Champ, Popmaster Fable, Pop and Chuck, Kid Cobra, The Core, aka V-Boy Spirit. So people locally within the Midwest,
right,
who we were hiring to do these events and around the US as well. Abby Girl, Elmo, bro, like the lineup Remind, Pole One, Cujo, Smoke Phase 2, Wicked Phase 2, Brave Monk Phase 2. Bro, like the lineup we've had has been crazy. And then we not only did breaking, we did other disciplines. I don't like to call them styles because they always call every other dance form, you know, a discipline or a dance form. But when they get to black people shit, it's a style. No. So other dance forms, you know, Toyin, Junior's Brick House, Stuntman. I think I might have said Remind already. We had, man, bro, we had so many people roll through. And so I was very blessed and fortunate to work with folks in a capacity where I was hiring them and hiring these elders and these popular dancers, but also as a dancer myself, going out to compete, traveling, hitting the circuits, putting in work. I'm part of Motion Disorders crew. It's like one of the most legendary crews in the U.S. Like, you know, those are my boys. Yeah. They're from Milwaukee. I went to college in Madison, Wisconsin. It's like an hour and a half. It's like the midpoint between Chicago and Milwaukee, you know? Yeah. So, oh, not the midpoint. I'm saying that wrong. But anyway, yeah, bro, like I was very fortunate to be able to connect with so many people. Alien-S, Renegade, like, bro, like the people I've had access to as an organizer. And then also they see me put in work and somebody who's genuine. So being connected with them online and then folks being connected with me and then just seeing these things, especially as a black man in this world, specifically when I say black, I mean black as in like USA, like the land we refer to as the USA. I just started to really see things and certain common denominators and certain narratives about hip hop and how black folks were being erased. And it just really, I was like, this is the same shit that they did with blues. It's the same shit they did with jazz. It's the same shit they did with all of our art forms. And it's happening in breaking, you know, I say this as someone who really, you know, when I first came into breaking, like really buying into that same narrative of, oh, it was blacks and Latinos together and yada, 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 and not really learning about the lineage. But then I looked at these documentaries and I'm like, you know, I started breaking because of Beat Street. So Crazy Legs was like, you know, the backspin with the shoes off, the battle scene at the Roxy, Ken Swift with the 3-step and the splat to the cock, sir, you know, Flip Rock doing his stuff, Little Lep doing his, you know, cross step. Like that was like what got me into breaking. And so when I started to really learn about the history and look at these documentaries, I'm like, yo, these dudes is like second generation breakers.
Yeah. No one's like you
Who's
kind of get.
listening?
Yeah, because
You don't get.
well, I was gonna say like the original like b-boys, like the people that Cool Herc was bringing around, the
Yeah,
twins,
like,
Spy, like you didn't really hear shit from them. You know what I mean?
or
And
about them, because
yeah,
everything starts with that second generation, and you can't blame folks like Crazy Legs and them like that because they
no,
was
no, not at
teenagers,
all.
you know.
Exactly.
So these documentaries all start with them because that's when it got popular. But that's what happens when, you know, because in terms of, even I looked at the common denominators.
Mm.
What happens? Like the first great American form of entertainment, great being in terms of expansiveness and popularity, was minstrelsy. They came from making fun of black folks. So after
Mm.
that, folks, they started co-opting jazz, or like, swing, or jazz and all the other things, and it just kept happening. And the reason I've been very vocal about stuff online, in terms of like breaking in the hip hop dance communities, is because it's not only folks who, it's not just white people doing this,
Mm.
those who we refer to as white. It's non-black people of color. I hate that term because it's supposed to mean solidarity, but there's no solidarity, for me. But
It's
non-black people of color,
right, right.
specifically Latinos, even that for me, that's just the issue. Even with that name, is like most of your culture is indigenous to this hemisphere of the Americas, this area, and African, but you call yourselves Latinos after the root of your oppressors.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
Mhm.
yeah, man, it was just really problematic, and I just really started seeing like the inconsistencies and even the aesthetics. Like in Chicago specifically, if you weren't doing big moves, you weren't getting loved. If you danced, you were getting hated on, and I was just like, but why is that? It's a dance, and I just, so for folks who see me dance, it's just like, I don't really do power moves or other stuff. And part of that is
Mm-hmm.
just because of physical limitations. I had a spinal fusion when I was
Right.
right before I started breaking. But another part of it is like, you know what? I'm not gonna have a blow ups in terms of moves. Like, we call them in Chicago, we call them blow ups. I'm not gonna have
Right.
blow up moves, but I'm gonna have a blow up style. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
do that. And I just felt I was like one of a handful of black breakers in Chicago, man. And I started to notice that too in the US when I was traveling. Then when I would travel across the world, I'd be like, damn, like I get countries are like homogenous to a degree, but it's just like the fact that I'm not seeing black breakers in these freestyle session videos or XYZ or the B-boy world clips or the style to oof like clips. I know I'm dating myself, but
I
that
mean,
was a problem to me. So
yeah.
that's why, I bought into the narrative. It was by everybody and not only black, but then I started looking like, yo, this is my culture. We have a lineage of creation, and it's just the history of the dance. And then experiencing how people were like viscerally like attack me or buck back at me because of that. It was just like, yo, like, where is this coming from? Like, why is
Right.
this? So I started to go hard in the paint because it got to a point. It was like, you know what? I don't care about anybody else except black dancers because I know what it's like. So I'm going to say everything I need to empower them and to let them know like this is your culture that you're tied into,
Mm-hmm.
and
It's your
specifically black
their
folks in
space.
the USA. Because
Yeah.
that's what I say when that's what I mean when I say black. Because Puerto Ricans, they black too. A lot of them, but that's a different thing. Yeah, man. But
That's a different conversation.
yeah, my
Yeah.
fault. I can
So
get into that,
I'm
but I
not
feel like I'm
qualified.
rambling. My bad.
yeah.
You're
This
good.
Okay.
gets into a lot of the stuff we talked about in the first episode, where Mikhail talked about when he first started breaking, he was looking for cultural connections to Russia,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I
when
remember that.
I started breaking, it was when the Koreans and the Japanese were really popping off, and when I started breaking and I started practicing and going to jams and shit, the majority race I saw out there doing shit were Asian,
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's definitely we talk about people like you know, here's it's a funny comparison. People complain about the riot, like the looters, stuff like that during the protests, but every other race, especially white people, have been looting other cultures for centuries, and that's something that happened with breaking. Is like something I noticed is people of all the races have co-opted the style, and now they feel entitled to it. They feel like, this is mine now. I've contributed. And they react defensively as though it belongs to them when you call them out on the fact that they're actually guests in hip hop, and they won't acknowledge that, and two, speak out about black issues.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that over the past week I've been following on Box's page.
Word.
Yeah, he posted a rant about guests in black culture, and a lot of people on his friends list were really offended by that.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to deal with, and Easy Boo talked about this, but he talked about his Taekwondo thing about like, yo, I can practice Taekwondo. That don't make me Asian. It means that I'm doing Taekwondo and I'm respecting it. But for some reason, everyone feels entitled to black creation and black culture.
Mm-hmm. It's really difficult, right? Because I know in my time here, being in Hong Kong and being fortunate enough to travel the world, a lot of, specifically speaking to Asian culture, a lot of it is based off of ritual. So to a large degree, it's performative. So you look, like being here in Hong Kong, 94 to 96% of the population here is ethnically Han Chinese. So they're around people who look like them, eat like them, speak like them, do all the things like them. And so just looking at Asian cultures in general, like I said, is very much based off of ritual, because a lot of their stuff, despite wars and other things, has pretty much remained intact overall. Despite like ethnic, wars, China had the three great kingdoms, and they've had wars, whatever. But
they've split up and gotten back together more times than fucking Britney Spears and Kevin Federline.
Look at Taiwan, right? Taiwan was defectors or whatever from China, Chinese Communist Party, whatever. But they largely, it's performative, it's ritual, it's stuff that's remained intact for thousands of years. So there's certain things that you need to do to show, be respectful or show honor or XYZ, where that's how they view culture. So that's why you have a lot of folks who are Asian American who have this identity crisis, no matter, how closely in tune to their culture they are, because it's based off of ritual. Ritual is performative, versus our culture, black culture, which is very much, and I truly believe this, and this is my perspective and just based off of observation, that black culture from the USA is, in our current day and age, the most human, reflects what it is to be like human. It's like the most human experience. We are, for the most part, we don't identify with national borders. We don't identify with being American. We were not allowed and able to buy into constructs of supremacy or the dominant culture, white supremacy, whiteness, that social construct. We don't operate off of tribal ties like our brothers and sisters in the continent might. You know what I'm saying? So we also generally don't have an indigenous claim to the land like our Native American brothers and sisters do. Right. So we're totally devoid of all these claims to make us this thing. So what the fuck are we? We just here, and we just trying to be human, and we are also dehumanized. And black folks in the USA are the only group of folks who aren't immigrants to that land, and as I said, don't have a indigenous claim overall. So, there's theories about us, intermingling, which I agree Africa explored here first, and also there are Afro folks, Native Americans who have African ancestry, like due to mixing and whatever else like that.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, we have the most human experience, and other folks, they just, in our modern day and age, they do not operate like that. They are a certain way because of an association with a landmass or nationality or a tribal claim or, a psyche of racial dominance.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have none of that. And even you look at the laws of physics, and I said this in an interview with my homie, Rob Celtic, off of his interview podcast called Drinking and Dance at the End of the World, which is in terms of the concept of blackness, even based off the properties of physics, because physics is also not only the study of movement, it's also the study and breakdown of sound and color.
Yes.
And so the color white, what does the color white do? When you see the color white, that means it's pushing away all the other colors.
Mm-hmm.
Like on my shirt, based on scientific properties, you see red. That means it's absorbing all the other colors, but it's pushing away red.
Right.
So, if you see a color, it's pushing away that color. White pushes away all colors. What does black do? It absorbs all the colors. It's welcoming.
Mm-hmm.
So that concept of blackness, like even just based off a scientific principle, our shit is welcoming, So when I look at these insecurities that all these other dancers and stuff have, is based off of, oh, you're this based off of where you live, or you're Latino because you speak these languages, or you're on this certain landmass, or yada, 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 versus us, you black. You Jamaican? Okay, you black. You white, but your great granddaddy black? Well, we had the one drop rule. You black. Are you Dominican? Oh, okay. You black. Like shit.
Right.
That's how we get down. So other cultures don't have that. They're not as accepting. So yeah, like when folks get
even with the inverse, like the concept of whiteness, as a racial construct, right? It used to specifically mean like white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, right? Italians, Irish people, they were basically like
Germans,
fucking if you weren't a WASP, fuck you, get out of my house. Like even further back, the English and the Danes, they had fucking issues because the English were really, really bad at bathing, and the Danes had really nice long hair that they would like bleach blonde and they take care of real nice, and they didn't really like the fact that their women were more attracted to them, and they tried to kill them. It's crazy. But like over time, the definition and the idea of whiteness has shifted. Even like myself, like I'm Russian and Italian, right? 30 years ago, with the name Mikhail in the 80s, in like the midst of the Red Scare, people would not fuck with me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and if you go further back to like what was it? Whatever.
Cold War?
Not well, the Cold War. There's that.
That's what you referenced. Yeah, sorry.
Yes. But like what is that thing? Prohibition. That's the word I was looking for.
Yo, bro. So the document. Oh, everybody out there watching that, the documentary series of Prohibition by Ken Burns, who also did like the jazz joint. That's on Netflix. Yo, that joint is so legit.
Mm-hmm.
Yo, okay. So side note, my bad.
Yeah, talk about it.
Okay. So one, we talk about like, and that's when y'all see me go hard in the paint about these issues against like Latinos, Afro Latinos, that hip hop and breaking our black culture. I always tell people, I always quote Denzel Washington. He said, it's about culture, not color.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a person who is of African descent, who's black by USA standards, from Puerto Rico or Boricua, they're still not black like me, whose ancestors were on that landmass. You know what I'm saying? So one thing that really helped me get that in perspective is actually this documentary by Ken Burns, because on Prohibition, which is on Netflix,
Okay.
Because a lot of folks, they always say like, oh, alcohol was legal until the government got their hands on it, and it's like that is farthest from the truth that you can get, because there was ethnic clash between white Anglo-Saxon Protestants and then other European people, so like the people from the Czech Republic, Italians, German, and the Irish, because in their cultures, in the U.S., alcoholism was so rampant. It was bad. Like, it was really bad. It was like deteriorating the country. And so you had these white Midwestern women who really fought for temperance movements to stop saloons from selling alcohol, to shut them down. But then you had, as prohibition started to come along, or that movement started to ramp up, you had these ethnic clashes between the WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, folks who were descended from the British, who, fought for independence or whatever else like that. And then you had clash between them and the Germans, the Italians, the Russians, the Irish, stuff like that. Yeah. And so that's how prohibition came about. And it broke down that whole thing. So like the mob ties and all that stuff, and the clashes between ethnicities of European people in the U.S. Like, yo, that joint was so eye-opening to me. Which is why after that really helped me put in perspective the difference between race and ethnicity, and really push for like, well, what is it to just be human, and what does that mean? And you know, I tell people all the time, I'm not black. There's no such thing as a black person. But I would be a fool to sit my black ass up here and tell you I'm not black. You know what I'm saying? So exactly. Race is a socially constructed reality.
Absolutely.
So the construct of it's not real, but the consequences of where you fall within it are very much real. So when I talk about these things of like, oh, you know, there's a comedian from Brooklyn, rest in peace. His name is Rashad. I forget his last name. He did a joke. It's called Poppy Ain't No Snitch.
Right.
So he talked about like this Puerto Rican dude. He's like, you could rob an old black person, whatever. You could rob an old Puerto Rican dude. He ain't gonna be that dude. You know, Poppy will be this way. You know, Poppy, he cool. Poppy ain't no snitch. You know, he did all this stuff. But he said, you know, he go to the store and he had conflict with the dude, and he was like, hey, how much is it? And he's like, you look at the dude, he look at you like you disturbing his peace. He's like, hey, you come in here every day, you order the same fucking thing, but today you give me brand. Like, I don't know why. But whatever. He was like, you know what, nigga? Fuck you. And he was like, I fuck you. I ain't scared of you because you black. And he was like, nigga, you black too. And he was like, yeah, but you black like this. And it's just like, yo, seeing that, and how all these like New York OGs try to pass off like we was all hanging together. I'm like, bro, anti-blackness is global. Anti-blackness is embedded in Latin culture. Like, y'all were kids hanging together, but y'all can hang together in the street, but you couldn't take them to your fucking abuela's crib. So don't try to feed me that bullshit, because I know there's a difference between race and ethnicity. You add in cultural misunderstandings, language barriers, and also economic competition against poor people who are pitted against each other. Like, I don't buy into that universal melting pot bullshit they try to pass in New York, because they call it Spanish Harlem for a reason. It's still Harlem. It's all Harlem. Right. So, you know, and even New York, in a lot of ways, they also took some of their notes on doing certain shit from Chicago in terms of like segregation and splitting people. So like, I look at the common denominators, bro. I know I went on a whole loophole with that joint, but
no, you're good.
No, sorry if I may, I just want to just kind of further on that point, because it's an interesting dynamic that I don't think a lot of people talk about. Like this concept of race versus ethnicity. You know what I mean? Because there is like just in my experience, there is a small amount of erasure of, sort of my ethnic culture, right? I don't know shit about the Irish or strong like ties that my family has to Italy. It's not like super like I don't know any fucking. There's like an Italian tradition in Christmas with like 7 fish or whatever. I don't know shit about that. I did it once with my aunt. I think like 7 years ago. I don't like fish, so I didn't eat any of them. But you know, I experienced it once. But like there, you know, to push towards this homogenized melting pot idea, and I think it's almost a what's the word? I'm trying an appeal to the greater whiteness. You know what I mean? Because there are things that like a white, you know, an American white person would see in like a Eastern European, even like a German, you know, fucking even like Swedish or something, you know, like see that culture and see very alien to them. You know what I mean? How despite being like, yeah, I'm white and there's white culture, and it's like, well, no, you're fucking Swedish and you don't want to eat the stinky fish. That could be so culturally insensitive. I could be getting that so wrong right now, but
I've seen the videos. I think it is stinky. But go ahead.
But yeah, like, and I think that there is a sense of that within like the processing of hip hop and breaking culture in the US where as you were talking about the melting pot thing, like, oh, we was all together creating this. Like, no, there's a bunch of black guys that created breaking. The Puerto Ricans, even in one of the documentaries, I think it's the Freshest Kids, they would talk about how the old Puerto Ricans would be like, oh yeah, don't do that. That's that Moreno style. Right?
Yeah, that's the Moreno, like, you know, like, and this is the thing, right? Like, I look at, and when we talk about blackness, that's why I really talk about ethnicity, because in terms of racial constructions, and I've had racial social constructions or the concept of race, I've had like plenty of debates with other black folks about, okay, so what is black? Because you have Afro Latinos, they're black, Dominican, Puerto Rican, also Caribbean folks. You know, Bambaataa was I think his parents from the Caribbean. Kool Herc was a Jamaican immigrant. I think a Grandmaster Flash. I think he's like a descent from like Barbados or whatever else like that, right? And you know, obviously we look at like the brothers of the original folks. You know, like Spy, Dominican. Dancing Doug, Puerto Rican, looked like what we would consider to be black. Maybe not bliggity black, but he black. Right? So that's why I really draw the lines in terms of ethnicity, because what tends to happen in the U.S. is on both sides in terms of constructs of whiteness and blackness is they get presented as a monolith. So what I've experienced and what I've noticed, you know, from my perspective, and what I've noticed is in terms of even being blessed enough to travel the world and seeing how the concept of blackness shifts in different land masses, is that in the U.S. we get black folks, we get presented as like this bland monolith until we're peppered in with some type of cultural diversity from our brothers and sisters from the Caribbean or Latin America or from continental Africa. And that could be further from the truth. Because even me, like, oh, you just black. Okay, yeah. But okay, you're first generation. Most of them are immigrants too. So they buy into dominant like cultural narratives like of a dominant group, you know. So you have folks from the Caribbean who still to this day, like I have a homegirl, she's a few years younger than me, and she's like, yeah, my parents used to tell me like, don't be hanging with them black folks.
Yeah,
she's Haitian,
right?
Like, you know what I mean? So they had
black
that.
folks.
Yeah, you are black folks, exactly. But that's why race and ethnicity are totally different. So when we look at that, like, oh, Puerto Ricans aren't guests in hip hop, we made it together. No, you didn't make it together, because yeah, there's always been conversation between amongst the diaspora, or whatever. There's been conversation between us, but make no mistakes about it. It's been on black folks in the USA to create these musical and political movements to come about that. Even like the concept of Pan-Africanism, like you black, I'm black, we all in this together. Red, black, and green. Red is for the blood, green is for the land of Africa, black is for the people. That comes from Garveyism. That's Marcus Garvey. He is a Jamaican man.
Gotcha. Oh,
hello?
Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you, but I can't see you.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, my face isn't super important.
Okay, word. So, you know, the concept of Pan-Africanism comes from a Jamaican man, but it took flight and it remained hardcore based on black folks in the USA. You know, even like, and you look at places like Louisiana, where there was a really, you know, our ancestors have been traded across the Americas. So we have shared ancestry from folks who may have been imported from Puerto Rico or the Caribbean over generations. And, you know, you look at a place like Louisiana, Congo Square, where it had all these like Caribbean rhythms and music and other stuff that meshed with local Southern Black stuff, which created what would become like Louisiana type of music, which then traveled to like Chicago, New York, and that became jazz. You know, and also, you know, shout outs to Kansas, Kansas City, Missouri. You know, they also played a role too. So there's diversity within us, and even me. I'm second generation to grow up in Chicago due to the Great Migration. You know, so even culturally, you know, a lot of you talk to. I'm 35, so you talk to people my age, and even a little bit younger. It's like, yo, all of our grandparents are from the South. But we just get presented as black, and that's all you is. But it's like, yo, we have different experiences. Like, I'm second generation growing up in a city, in a city center, you know?
Yeah.
But we just get presented as this bland monolith until we're peppered in with other black folks who latch on to these other national identities from around the world and XYZ. And it's like, that's further from the truth. We have our own history, 350 plus years before, you know, hip hop formed. You know, you look at folks like Kool Herc. He took on a Black American identity. He fought purposely to lose his accent. When he would try to play like reggae roots music at some of the parties, you know, and this is documented in the book Can't Stop, Won't Stop by Jeff Chang. Brothers and sisters around the way be like, what is you doing? Like, turn that shit off. Like, switch it up. And I was blessed enough to even see when he met the funky drummer, Clyde Stubblefield. Because Clyde Stubblefield lived in Madison, Wisconsin for like 40-something years.
Okay.
And, you know, I'm in the dance studio. I'm in the music studio. Me, my boy Disney, MC K Swift from Brownsville, my fault, from New York, and we're up in there with other folks, and you know I'm geeking because I'm like, yo, it's Kool Herc. Oh my god! And then Kool Herc is like, oh, it's Clyde Stubblefield, and he's telling Clyde because they're rehearsing to do like a drum and DJ thing together for like a performance. Yo, man, when I was young, you know, I used to imagine when James Brown would say, when I give it up, turn it loose, when he would say Clyde, I imagine he was talking to me because his name is Clive Campbell. So I personify like living up to a Black man from the South, his personality and embodying that as well as a person, you know? So I'm just like, yo, like, don't try to erase us and buy into this dominant white narrative of y'all just Black and that's all it is, when our Blackness has defined what is unity, because we're the main ones carrying it out. And we're the, you know, because everybody got their own traditions and these national borders, and even in Africa, in continental Africa. Where are you from? I'm Nigerian. I'm Cameroonian. I'm Zambian. I'm from Gambia. But those are actually just nationalities tied to borders that European powers carved up and assigned to y'all. You know, so yeah, I look for common denominators. I don't buy into the fuck shit, bro. Like, I'm with it. At the end of the day, we're all human, but let's call a spade, and let's see how we've been inundated with colonialism and how it's impacted us separately, so we can come together. Because that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
You know, that's the beauty of breaking down the bullshit that we've been through to see, okay, what is our true human experience with each other outside of these isms and these constructs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we're nearing our time here. So like
Damn, I know I
one thing
talk
I
a lot.
wanted to.
My bad.
No, you're good. You're good. It's been great.
This is yeah, no, this is
Two
awesome.
things. Two things I wanted to was just talking about how anti-blackness and even anti-darkness is like rampant universally in like all cultures. One thing being like, so my friend told me the story. His wife is Indian, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like Southern Indian. They're dark, like very dark skinned, and and her family is the same, and they went on a cruise, and her mother, his wife's mother, the dark Indian, said he asked her and was like, hey, so how did you like the cruise? She's like, it was good, but one thing I didn't like was it smelled like Norristown. And Norristown is a town in Philly area just outside that's like predominantly black. Like it's like the ghetto area of like where we live that's outside of Philly. You know what I mean? So, and she's, they're like rich and they're from like the rich suburbs and all that. And yeah, and everyone's just like, you can't say that. That's like really racist. She's like, what? I don't get it. So we're looking at someone who could be easily mistaken for being black with a complete anti-black outlook. And even like anti-darkness is like ingrained in cultures like in Asia.
Yeah, that's it's like that scene in fucking Parasite, or not even a scene, but it was like a motif with have you seen Parasite?
I have not, but
shit. Well,
I heard it's dope. I know it's dope.
It's a great movie, and I don't want to ruin anything for you, but like there's this thing. The family, there's the scene where like there's one family that's working for the other family, right? The father of the rich family is being driven by the father of the other family, and he like is like, and he's like, oh man, what's this smell? I can't deal with it. And they end up overhearing them over time like talk about the smell that they can't of this entire family, right? And it's so like it's such a terrible like thing, like the way it's illustrated of how insulting that sort of that commentary is, and that's the way that they harp on it, and it's like that just kind of rung in my mind. I was like the classism in that sort of speech. Sorry.
Yeah, and that's a Korean film, and everyone in that is Korean. So like,
right.
One thing is like, okay, so in Chinese culture, right? Like the women have umbrellas for when the sun's out, because pure white milky skin is seen as like the epitome of beauty in Chinese culture. And then of course, like China has like waged war on darker Asian countries for thousands, like millennia, And something you talked about also about like where you live being like 95% Han Chinese is like, that's part of a certain level of imperialist like colonialism, in the sense like that's the majority, like that's the kingdom that won, and then they became the winners, and they became the majority, like white people across the world. I took a 23andMe test like a year ago that Trish got for me, and I thought like I'm not Han Chinese,
Okay.
And I'm of a subset from the West that was like in the desert, that when the Han were the dominant kingdom, they basically just drove them out. So I'm like mostly not Han Chinese, and then I've got like mixes of like Viet and like Cambodian and stuff in there, because they had to escape, and then they ended up settling and mating and living with other Asian cultures. But it's my major point I wanted to make here is it's very interesting about just how like anti-darkness is Like that's instilled in so many cultures. It's instilled even in like American Black culture. You
Yeah,
know, like the
bro.
whole
Oh
memeing of
man,
like light skins and like, you
dark
know.
skin, good, and that's the thing, right? Because even in Latino culture, you also have the same thing, like light skin, dark skin. You have colorism. You even also have like the whole thing of good hair, bad hair. Like I'm considered to have bad hair because it's like super nappy, kinky, tightly coiled, strong, considered African. I have a twin brother. He has more loosely curled hair than mine. You know, so our grandmother, my father's mother, would tell us, you know, Big Mama, we call her Big Mama. You know, she from the South though, you know, so that's how they grew up. She would look at my brother and be like, "Oh, you got that good head." And she just look at me and don't say nothing. You know, I grew up with
Yeah.
that shit, and that's something that's very prevalent also in Latino culture. You know, so that's why I'm like, yo, there's common denominators between all of us as humans, especially like, um, I was very blessed and fortunate to kick it with I don't know if you all know this cat named A Game from Style Elements Crew. Um, his
No.
mother, he's Cambodian. His mother, uh, Thida, Ida, I forget how to say it. I forget how to say it. His mom is a phenomenal woman. She's a survivor of the Khmer Rouge, or the Khmer Rouge, or whatever. I think it's Khmer Rouge in
Mhm.
Cambodia. And I had a chance to just sit with her and talk to her at her crib. And she, man, bro, she put some shit in perspective for me. She was just like, you know what? People, we talk about race and we talk about all these things right now, but she was just like, you know what? We just live in a day and age where Europeans and European colonialism, like that's the superpower. Because back in the day, it was the Moors.
Mhm. Mhm.
Moors was running shit, you know. So we just living in a day and age where white people control everything and they control the outlook. So that when I travel to Asia, a lot of folks like they try to pass off like, oh, the racism or the racial prejudice here is just like, oh, well, they only, you know, they have like the idea of like the farmer and the dark skinned lights. And I was like, no, that shit is also conflated with the impacts that they've had at dealing with white imperialism and white colonialism or European colonialism. You
Mhm.
know, you can go. You're in Hong Kong, where a city of 7 to 8 million people are 94 to 96% are not only of Chinese descent, but of the same fucking ethnicity. And then the last 4 to 6% are a mixture of Asian, European, and African people, people from all over the world. When you have a large population of Filipinas, Filipino, Indonesian, um, and maybe Malaysian folks or women who are domestic helpers,
Yep.
and add into it like Indian, like in Pakistan, like South Asian, you know, Southeast Asian folks too. Um, we've all been impacted in this modern day and age by European colonialism.
Mhm.
So that's gonna bleed into their sense of identity and beauty standards because you can travel in Hong Kong in certain places and there's equal ads of white people in luxury brands than there are their own people. And I'm just like, hmm. But you know, even in Hong Kong with the protests, you have folks waving the British flag because they just want a boss back. And I'm just like, you do realize they obliterated your fucking navy because y'all wouldn't let them sell dope, and you're asking them to take over just because China seems the way. Like yo, if you're gonna ask for anything, at least fight for independence. Don't ask for your old masters back. Like, what's wrong with y'all? Like, so folks
It's
here
like a
try to
toxic
play.
ex-girlfriend, man. It's like it's running
Yeah,
back to
yo,
abusive ex.
right? Hey, Stacy used to stab me, but that's way better than Courtney because Courtney be trying to shoot a motherfucker. It's just like, no, it's
They're both
all
bad.
bad.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And yo, talking about like, even like anti-darkness in like Latino communities. I have friends who are like Puerto Rican and like Cuban and stuff like that, and the whole sentiment is, oh yeah, we hate Dominicans. Why? Because they're N-words. Like, that's like Yeah, that's like a whole thing. It's
Bro,
Dominicans are like the
bro,
dirty Hispanics because they're darker skinned.
colonized minds. That's why when I be going, bro, when y'all see my interactions, like I be going in, even the concept that folks would say they're Latino, I'd be like, that shit's colonized.
Mm-hmm.
You're most of even especially when we talk about breaking and hip hop, like oh everybody and their mama is a fucking Taino. Everybody's Taino. Not to say it disrespectfully in a way with respect to that indigenous tribe, those indigenous peoples, but it's like y'all do realize to the how much they were decimated. That population was decimated along with other native populations across the Americas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they use identification with being Taino as a way to distance themselves from their Africanness, not as a way to just identify as Taino and to honor their native ancestry, but it's just like, yo, when you really look at it, y'all are mostly African and European. Sorry to tell you, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
based on population, you know, and even just like the idea, oh, where we're mixed. Okay, technically, you're talking about gene expression. Because if we want to get technical, black folks in the USA are more mixed than y'all. Y'all on a tiny fucking island, and the same people have been fucking the same people in this tiny place for how many generations versus in the US. Not only have y'all been coming here, other folks been coming here, blah, blah, blah. And that's, you know, that's just based off the main populations that they claim to be part of. Because you have Jewish people, you have a lot of people across the world who went to Puerto Rico, right? But I be calling that shit out, and I'm just like, bruh, like people have been mixed for centuries if you want to go there.
Yeah.
You know,
And if you ever want to like tell like talk to a Hispanic person and really open their eyes to like how colonialized they are, it's like, why do you think you speak Spanish? Why do you think your family is Catholic? You know,
bro, like you're Latin. What about your food is Latin? They imported or between the natural land and the shit that they imported. Like, okay, you're Latin because you were forced to speak a language that's derivative of the root of Latin, like of a Latin like language. You know, like come on, yo, like bro, I go in on all of that shit because it's complete bullshit to me, and how people, you know, anti-blackness is very inherent in that culture and how they try to mesh it and do these universal narratives, erasal narratives. Hip hop is by everyone. Hip hop is always for everyone. You know, it speaks to a true and pure, I think, the ideal of a pure human existence, and that comes specifically as a result of a group of people who weren't allowed, who don't identify with a nationality. We weren't allowed a buy-in to the extent of our other brothers and sisters across the Americas into whiteness. We also weren't disillusioned as being closer to African. We also didn't have the ideals of tribal ties like our African brothers and sisters who are connected directly with their culture, despite interruption and disruption from European colonial powers. And also, we don't have a tribal a claim to the land like our indigenous native folks, you know, brothers and sisters in the Americas. You know, so we didn't have the buy-ins or the chance to be separate from shit. So that's why, like, I really broke. I really, this is my perspective, and I can't say that it's fact just because, you know, I'm not like a super learned, researched person. I'm well researched and learned, but I'm not like, you know, super whatever. And I'm not even saying in terms of a degree, just like in general. But like I see through the bullshit. I look for the common denominators, and you know, I really look at the constructs that we have to deal with, and I look at reality, and that's how I see shit. That's how I break it down. So when people come at me and they feel so super insecure and like I'm being like racist, which they really should be saying I'm being racially prejudiced, it's just like, nah, like, yo, I just see blackness as a construct from the USA being the purest form of being able to attain just a level of just being human. Because that's the goal. Because we're all, at the end of the day, you break down all this bullshit that we've been inundated with and indoctrinated with, and thinking that we're separate to a degree, and we're human. You know, like you know, even the person we refer to as Jesus, he was mixed. You break down race, ethnicity, cultures, geography. People have been mixed for centuries, bro. Like, so I just be reading through the bullshit, and people be getting sensitive because you break down, you literally just, you challenge their whole world, not their world view, like how they think about the world. So when we, you know, and we've all seen the conversations, you've seen the stuff that I get into with people, you challenge their, like, I'm bending the spoon. If we're looking at like the Matrix, I'm bending the spoon with ease, and other folks are bending the spoon with ease, and they don't even realize, like, you know what I'm saying? They don't even know about the red or the blue pill, but I'm bending spoons in front of them. You know? When we having these conversations, like you're literally bending spoons in front of them, and they don't even know about the red or the blue pill yet.
Right.
So that's why folks get so like
meltdown. And step one is really sort of breaking down the walls of that entitlement and that worldview, you know. So that's really, you know, that's really going to be the sort of the catalyst, the defining factor where things need to start. So, I guess to wrap things up, anything you want to plug, anything you want to endorse, anything you want to shout out?
Yeah. If folks would be so willing, definitely follow me on Instagram at MOGDance, MOGDANCE. I will be putting out a Patreon page and other stuff as well. Also follow me on Instagram at DJKINGGNS, at DJ King Genius, at DJKINGGNS. I have music mixes, other stuff online, but I'm going to be really, over the next 3 months, taking time to really do like more in-depth readings, also writings based on interactions and other things that I've had over the years to really dissect racial constructs and also to call out and dismantle anti-Blackness amongst people of color. So yeah, especially within Black dance forms, specifically breaking, but in general. So yeah, just be on the lookout for that. I would appreciate folks' support. And shit, if you got a mama or grandma or somebody you love or a dad, go tell them you love them and hug them and shit.
It's a great way to end the show.
Yeah.
Great message.
Yeah.
Go hug a family member today.
Yep. All right. Don't Panic
Appreciate
Podcast.
y'all, man.
Yeah, man.
Thank you for talking with us so much.
So great having you.
For sure. Awesome.
Don't let this be the last time. I'm around.
Oh, of course. Yeah. We're gonna find a way to talk when it's not 5:30 in the morning for you.
Yeah. Yo. What time is it? Oh, damn.
Yeah.
It's 7:20.
Yep.
I gotta wake up in like an hour and a half to get my son and shit.
Oh God.
All right.
Thank you so much.
And last and final message for everybody out there. To quote the brother Lupe Fiasco, Taipei, it's an acronym. TYPAITH. Taipei. Take your punk ass in the house. It's Rona out here.
Yeah. All right, man.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Y'all.
All right, man.
Patreon.com/Don't Panic Podcast. Please consider following. We are contributing. Follow us. This new episodes weekly. YouTube, audio on Spotify. Highlights.
Yeah.
Highlights on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
Putting stuff on the internet.
We're gonna be talking about some great stuff and having some great people on our wonderful guest today. So signing off, and we'll see you guys next week. Bonus episode coming next week also.
Woohoo! Bonus episode.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
What's up?